Welcome to the Research and Scholarship Collaborative. I am Dr. Diane Eam. Thank you so much for joining us today. I apologize again for our technical difficulty yesterday, and I'm glad to see that you have been able to return and join us today for Dr. Kim Eagles. I am very pleased to welcome Dr. Eagles. She is the founder of the Global Ed Consulting and author of the Global Ed Dialogue book series and Peopling. She has a doctorate from Keiser University in educational leadership and a background in global communication. Kim designs emotionally fluent resources that spark healing, legacy building, and intergenerational connection. Her workshops and books empower families, educators, and leaders to navigate complex emotional topics with clarity, humor, and faith-rooted wisdom. She is known for her nurturing presence and visionary approach and blends realism and storytelling to make emotional literacy accessible across generations. She is passionate about mentoring cycle breakers and cultivating courageous conversations that transform lives. And she is going to be presenting to us a 4-part series that we are very pleased to welcome her to. So, Dr. Eagles, if you could take it from here.
Well, hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today and this adventure of learning this new thing about peopling. Wow, who knew? Peopling, yes, it is a thing. So I would just like to share a little bit about this journey that we will be going on, and just letting you know that over the past 3 years, about 3 years ago, and it was when I released this or started working on this particular publication, and it was kind of started me off on these thoughts of social exhaustion and peopling. And of course, so this led me to get underway with wanting to share some of the ideas and concepts and definitions to start with. That's what we're learning today in this particular session as well as a little bit of the history behind this peopling concept. So again, welcome aboard, and let's just move forward. I've entitled this Understanding Social Exhaustion, and putting it within this aspect of the art of peopling, or the art of human engagement. Again, it's a 4-part series, so hopefully you'll join us throughout this entire series, and we have a lot of information to share with you. Just some expectations of what to expect today is I will be defining what is entitled peopling, so that you can better understand and the background and the dimensions of this. Also, you will be able to recognize some of the signs of social exhaustion and what the impacts on academic life, in students and faculty, and in the workplace, how it's affecting us and the social exhaustion. I'll also express and share some new profile terms that I will be explaining as well, that I incorporated this new language of discovery into peopling, and then also give you some strategies with some ways to sustain engagement in these roles of engagement in overcoming social exhaustion. Also, we'll reflect a bit on the styles of peopling and the bandwidth that is involved in that. And then finally, today we'll learn about some new skills that you will be able to develop throughout this particular session. So let's start by going back to kind of give you a little history and background. In 2020, in this year, social exhaustion has become really widespread, and where people are experiencing this emotionally attuned and service-oriented mentality, and with groups of individuals such as educators, caregivers, community leaders, and the family, etc. So we're finding that we're overloaded here, and I want to share and break down some of the key reasons why we might feel so drained these days. And so let's talk about these areas of why we are finding that we might have this social exhaustion. As you see here, we're always on. We're turned on from sun up to sundown, with modern technology, etc. Emotional bandwidth is depleted. Also, we're still recovering from the pandemic and kind of still in the recovery stages, if you can believe that or not. Also, there is economic issues, and these are causing and existing new stressors to come about. Also, we look at performance and pressure and this hidden health issue factor of this chronic fatigue that's going on, even causing us to go into something like a social withdrawal. So going back to always being turned on, what I mean by this is we have digital overload, if you will. One of the first areas that we are always expected to be available via email, messaging apps, social media, etc. And it's really blurred our boundaries and affected our personal and professional lives, and our wellness spaces are becoming saturated with content and leaving little room for us to have this really engaging and genuine rest. Again, in this emotional bandwidth, I refer to that as it's being depleted, and it's causing us compassion fatigue. And it's also arising among individuals that are, in the forefront of workplace environment, individuals, education institution, college students, health workers, nonprofit organizations. We are all being affected by this area of making sure that we are turned on. And going back to the fact is that we are still in this post-pandemic reentry, even though it's been, 5 years, close to 5 years since the pandemic. We're still recalled trying to get back into this social rhythm. Some of us have changed occupations where we're working remotely, and some of our circumstances have changed. And so a lot of this is actually causing individuals to take and perceive this way of how we're being depleted of energy and not really being able to fully recover, believe it or not, from that particular area that we've gone through. Of course, we're involved in this economic and environment. It is ever stressing us out, cost of living, inflation of housing, job insecurity, right? And this climate of anxiety is weighing heavily on individuals and people, and they're emotionally being abusing their resources, if you will. Their emotional resources are just really being taxed. So these pressures create constant low grade of stress, and it even makes this social interactive area a little heavier for us to step into. Also, we look at performance and pressure, and even this is helping to identify this fatigue that we're going through in social media. Many of us have side hustles and gigs and side jobs that we're having to increase our resumes, and even just our income, boosting the incomes at oftentimes. So it's really pushing individuals into really curating this new performance and finding ways to really increase our personalities. And for many of us, we feel that we must always be at that point where we have to show up mentally and, asserting energy, even when we're emotionally depleted, it's leading to this syndrome of being burnout. So it's a real factor that we need to be aware of. And then finally, these hidden health factors are causing these areas of chronic fatigue. And we're finding, people are going to doctors, et cetera, having vitamin deficiencies and this post-viral syndrome, like, what has happened since COVID. And so this has contributed a lot to this low energy, and a lot of people have not really been able to rebound, and this having a reduction of social stamina is what I kind of like to call it. We just don't have the energies oftentimes to even have this mental health conditions where we want to take a mental health day. Conditions like anxiety and depression also are being manifested within this area where we want to socially withdraw. And for many of us, it's becoming overwhelming. So throughout this 4-part series, we're going to learn and discover some ways to curb this and find out what might help. With this, we're learning what helps. We need to find out what will help to restore practices of expressions and our value-based work environment, community connections, and really gain this traction again. We want to be on pace for people and individuals that are seeking this legacy-minded engagement. That means really paying attention to our needs of being present and also being more purpose-driven. Being legacy-minded really has to do with living a life that is leading to a long-term perspective of thinking. So this is what I mean by this new legacy of leading or legacy mindedness. And I'll give you some details on how to avoid burnout, as it's a major trend in 2025. And that has been arising on the rise since this year, and we're seeing more and more pressure into that. I refer to it kind of this area where we're going through a social revival and social evolution. So what I would like to do now is talk about some social evolution and on communication, and we're going to look at the past, the current, and what's going to move forward, and some of those expectations. Just to give you a little visual, I really like visuals as well, and so I asked the question, do we have a communication issue? That's something that we need to look at. I think we do. Sometimes it's not what we say, it's that thing where it's tangled between us as we're communicating. So in this world of noise, I like this little visual of how we can mix up our ways of communication. So you'll learn a few new terms that I've developed. One is called soul span, vex load, and grace flow. You'll hear this throughout this particular series. So I'd like for you to become a little more familiar with it. So again, as I mentioned, yes, statistically, we do have a communication issue in our society, in worldwide. In general, communication struggles. About 33% of Americans say that communication has been difficult since the pandemic. And with this being interrupted is one area that is difficult for individuals. And, we find that we're in a hurry to express ourselves. And so it causes us to maybe over talk over others and repeat certain things. And, I often actually fall into this as well, kind of getting older and more mature. I find that my attention span and my patience is lessening. So I find myself in this area of wanting to rush through areas and sharing my opinions and things like that. And I think a lot of people are falling into this as well. So I know that I do fall into that category, and I wanted to, just address that for us as well, that we're all wanting to get our ideas across. So we need to find out how to do this. I refer to this generational issue of communication as a generational decline, where this generational decline, it looks and feels different for different generations. And it really feels less effective as we're communicating ever before. So within this area, we want to discover what we need to look for and what it looks like as well. Regarding relationships, mental health, and money issues, of course, are some of the most difficult topics that we're finding in relationships, mental health, money issues as well. Our general problems and where we're finding ourselves having these communication struggles. So with some information and statistics, a lot of this is based on information that is within the workplace and where communication is breaking down. And in the workplace, we're learning that we're having to negotiate these breakdowns. So within these graphs, I want to express some areas of one is burnout. Burnout, and we're finding that 60% of workers report increased burnout due to digital communication. Can you believe that? And those demands. Prime example, yesterday when we kind of had some issues with navigating through some of the digital platforms and, just some of the tools, and that causes stress as well. Additionally, we're finding another issue in communication is this tone of our messaging. So 42% of individuals feel stressed when they're really trying to convey the right tone in their messaging, and finding that this is causing additional stress. Poor communication, of course, always is the goal of what we want to overcome. And this article that Forbes has done a great job on explaining is nearly half of those in this research, they have stated that poor communication negatively affects their productivity in the workplace. So these are areas of hidden factors that are going on within this area where we're having this communication breakdown. And so these are areas that we want to really be aware of. In the workplace, we are finding this digital shift. Additionally, this, of course, causes a risk of communication and miscommunication, where this article states that 40% of Americans at work in the workplace are having difficulty adjusting to this digital shift. Video conferencing, of course, that of what we're doing now is a major shift in how we're communicating and sharing experiences and professional development, etc. And this has been a 700% increase since the pandemic. And so with that, We are really off the charts on what we're finding as far as this digital shift and how it is forcing us into a new era, whether we like it or not. It is something that is here. So with this shift, we're also, again, here's the little breakdown on burnout, but in this digital communication in effective teams, and we're finding that tools and the usage of tools and learning how to maintain and navigate through these. 58% of the workers feel pressure due to constant of being available due to these tools that we're using. So we must be available to answer calls and respond to phone calls and texting, etc. Even the alerts that we get on our phones when we're in meetings and the little beeping that we know we have a message there is indicating that this is attributing to this digital shift and causing stress. In this same article, we're finding that 12% of adults do still prefer face-to-face communication. So, wow, most of us we want to opt out on these tools, but there's still factors of utilizing our emails and texting. It's really here to stay. It's not going anywhere. These stats alone paint this picture of our society that we're on hyper connectivity, but the emotional level is really misaligned. So we're misaligned in these levels of stress and communication. And so we're sensing this area of communication issues in our circle and our circles of influence. And so we have to know that we're not alone. We're in this together, and we have to find a way of naming how to alleviate this social exhaustion. So please know you're not alone. And hopefully this peopling framework will offer some timely factors that you can use for now and in the near future. So these, again, are some of these digital areas that those graphs that you'll have access to later to just really look deeply into those. So now I'd like to introduce some new people terms and definitions. So let's discuss these definitions, and they will be used throughout this art of peopling. And I want to point out a couple of these definitions. So the ones that you'll hear today, the first one is soul span, integer, and grace flow, and self-driven peopling. So let's start here with this idea of self-driven peopling. So I want to start here. This is some area that I've kind of coined this phrase of self-driven peopling. And it is the intentional practice of showing up relationally without waiting for these external prompts or without needing applause and perfect conditions, is part of this area of the art of imitating a way for us to connect and navigating through this emotional terrain. And hopefully it's going to be leading us towards empathy. And please know, we're not at a point where one's handling this way of what I call mapping through our self-driven peopling. The idea of this self-driven peopling is like driving a car without GPS, right? So what we mean by that, it's a visual that I want you to imagine that you have the capabilities of using these emotional mirrors, if you will, like on a car to check out is it safe on the left? Is it safe on the right? Into this area of how we communicate with each other and having conversations. So this is what I feel self-driven peopling is all about. And now let's talk about peopling and soul span. I use this term soul span as far as this area where we are, we all have this area where we dive deep into our souls and how they're driven in this kind of area, how it motivates us. It helps to steer us with this soul span. And then so the steering area of how we navigate through our day is how we're being steered in this deep soul span that we exist in our peopling area. And we need to learn to brake, as in a car, braking with this grace flow. So even when we accelerate in these areas of energy, we need to learn to slow down by using this area of our energy or integer. And so this is all part of these concepts that we'll learn a little bit more about in this area of navigating through. And really the goal is aligning our thought process and how we communicate with each other in setting healthy boundaries. Oftentimes on this soul span, as you can see here in the definition, it is an area more on scientific terms of where it's tied to emotional regulation, our cognitive load, and our nervous system, and how we are resilient to this. In this area, we are affected. It affects our sleep patterns. It causes, us to be reminded of trauma, and it kind of brings up these triggers and stress hormones as well. So these are certain areas that I look at this soul span in the area of the window of tolerance by Siegel, and more of this effective capacity, looking into the psychological part of it. So why does all of this matter? It matters because we want to set up this whole foundation of emotional fluency in our daily communication, in our leadership, and hopefully sustaining empathy and leading us into being legacy minded and having that as our connection. And this applies to faculty, students, and others who are looking to learn ways to navigate this art of peopling and having a better understanding of ways to overcome social exhaustion and how it really affects human engagement. So let's move into a little bit more of this definition of social engagement. As again, I do like visuals, and here it states peopling and overcoming social exhaustion. So just a thought here of what we interpreted, kind of with a funny twist to it. So I use this term, social exhaustion, as a form of a noun, and it's really the way that to quiet this unraveling that happens with this emotional bandwidth that gets what I called, it kind of hijacks us. It makes too many of us want to move too fast and constant with little time to really get restored. So it's not just a way of, or where we're being tired or just exhausted. It's being reminded to be in relationship and place this area of not getting us stuck in withdrawing from others just because we are extremely exhausted. The idea in this is where even small talk and having group chats seem heavy to us. making eye contact feels exhausting as well. And when we are being required to always show up and to be turned on and to be tuned in, it is causing us to really be exhausted and not having enough time to truly reset. And it causes us to shrink into this area where it takes away from our energy level. And in this, when we're learning to overcome this social exhaustion, as we will be learning that, it will also teach us and how to have new cravings for silence, like oxygen, if you will. And we just need to learn to slow down a bit, even though the world keeps asking more from us and using more words, more discussion and more talking. I also use this as it's this invisible tax that we introverts experience in this area as the world impacts us all. And for some of us introverts, we look at it that it's a weakness that we might have as introverts, but now we want to use this in the form of allowing wisdom in the area for us to grow and to learn how to indicate when we need to really recalibrate. So we've gone over the social exhaustion. So let's move into some areas that in this session, we are also going to learn more information about some of us identify, or as introverts. Sometimes we are looked at as a recluse, or someone that is socially unaware and can't really just deal with that. And really sometimes we're just overwhelmed. So we'll explore ways for this area of everyday life interaction of how we can maintain this smoozing and small talk and casual conversation that can really make us feel extremely drained. So as you see here, the major factors and the hidden causes of this fatigue that we're experiencing, social fatigue in 2025, have to do with three main areas: general communication struggles, workplace communication breakdown, and digital shifts and the impacts there. So we've addressed some of those, and so we're now learning how to develop new competencies in this peopling, and it's really become a vital part of in work and in our social environment. So we'll draw some new skills on how to adapt to these new areas and how we can become more authentic in developing some of these strategies and having a more sustainable engagement as we are learning to communicate. And so with this, I refer to it again as the art of peopling. And here specifically, it means developing competencies of peopling where we become vital in work and social environments. Tolerating this area of being social is oftentimes what introverts tend to struggle with. And we will discover how introverts learn to have learned transformational social behaviors, such as myself. Basically, oftentimes people are amazed that I identify myself as an introvert, but basically I have, through professional development and personal development, and I've become able to transform my introvert traits into this new social behavior that in the past I really struggled with in silence. And I had to be tolerant of being social, but I've come a long way. But now it's really stirred me on to this new area of expansion. And I believe a lot of people identify as introverts, and they don't really know where it all came from. So let's move into a new area that will have to do with this, where peopling originated from. And it did come from this Neolithic revolution. So let's go into this a little bit more and develop what the story is and what is peopling all about. So we've shared a little bit about peopling, and now I just want to share that there's a strong history of a lot of people don't know about peopling that I've asked, even just the term in itself, in conversation, have you heard this term of peopling? And a lot of people, no, I have no idea what that is. So this is what we want to identify with that. And the older generation, especially, when I ask about if they know about what this is, this question mark comes over their face. No, I've never heard of it. So let's dive into this just a little bit. This is based on information from the Neolithic era that was over 10,000 years ago, where it was first this area that was canvassed as the art of people, and it was necessary for this human engagement, and individuals, in short, needed to find ways when humans had to people together in order to maintain this agricultural revolution that was taking place. And it marked this area back when the nomadic area of communities were developing, and hunting and gathering was taking place, where they were forming these new settlements and new villages, etc. And they had to develop means of cultivating and developing their food supply, and where the social and the actual special labor was going to be needed, and developing this hierarchy of roles. And this is where some of the individual traits were being developed in this early area of settlement, and even the system of governments and religion were being formed back in that Stone Age. So they had to start forming technologies and areas, and to navigate how to make potteries and develop tools, etc., and bringing out these various talents and teaching these talents in order for them to survive during the Stone Age. So this was a transformational era, no doubt, in human history, and where it became this pipeline of peopling, and it developed basically from the area of developing this social interaction. As we see, it was the beginning of this relational area of energy management, where individuals were living closely together, and they had to develop this emotional fluency. It wasn't termed that, of course, then, but that's how we relate to it now. Also, during this time, this is why it matters, because it helped to for us to develop the power dimensions of who had the control over the food and the land and made these decisions. And then, very importantly, the cultural intelligence, and where diversity really had to come into place. So it was very important. And so it really was important, and why this matters for this, what we refer to as peopling today. even within this particular revolution, we find that primarily this marked the shift of a systemic shift in human engagement as these nomads became settlers and had to become transformed in permanent settlement. The social roles and powers were established, and a lot of these areas are identified in the book that I on peopling and how we communicate, and how the structure was also aligned in developing this attachment theory and authority and again cultural intelligence. I'm really big on this cultural intelligence because in the area of peopling, it's important for us to know who we are and who's in the room with us, and that comes from this cultural experience. So now, as I mentioned, a few terms that I would want to just maybe now give a little bit of a definition to, starting with this soul span. And the basic definition of that is it identifies our emotional bandwidth, right? And so it's the stretch between what you feel and what you can hold, right, within yourself. And then there's this energy area that I refer to, and it refers to this rational and it's a relational signature, if you will, and it is the energy that we carry into the space and how others experience it. And then finally, this grace flow area is how we restore the rhythms and the way that we are able to refuel ourselves and refuel ourselves emotionally through silence, through retreat, meditation, and creativity and humor especially. I really find that humor is extremely important in being able to make sure that we understand that we can accept each other, often through humor. This systemic shift has caused us to engage in humanity again, and really the developing, as I mentioned before, of this pipeline. And it was developed a long time ago, and now we're just really engaging in again. So we learn in the history of peopling that it was born from lived experiences from an introvert. So I do self-claim that. And in the beginning, this personality for me of being quietly noticing this impact that I was hearing a lot of individuals were feeling extremely drained, and a lot of people were really admitting and coming out of the closet, as you will, and saying that, wow, I'm really an introvert. A lot of people don't realize that I'm an introvert. And so I was hearing this more and more, and that really led to me navigating to see perhaps that what I perceived as a negative part of myself as an introvert, or how I might have been perceived, and this being a negative turn, took me into a deep dive of finding out the whys. And peopling gave me this area to expand my emotional bandwidth and my responsibility, intercultural competence, personal awareness, presence, and again, this legacy leadership and everyday grace. So we look at this also, why it matters is because it does help us identify this emotional intelligence, even this, not the, the biological and neurological effects. And so I have some information and research that I'm just going to share with you, is that it helps us to really survive and connect, and it leads us to just being a little bit more able to connect with others. So we examine the basic attributes of the introvert here versus the extrovert in this binary chart. And just briefly, we just see that introverts recharge through solitude and reflection, whereas the extrovert will recharge through social interaction and activity. And introverts look into this depth of relationship. We want kind of more of a one-on-one, whereas the introvert might engage more in this entire area of being around people. So we know a lot of this. I just based on time, I'll speed up just a little bit to make sure we get everything covered. But these are some terms I just wanted to confirm with you, the introvert versus the extrovert and why this has a connection. So with the new terms that I shared, these terms here help to identify where we stand with the introvert expression versus the extrovert expression. So you'll be able to, and I'll give you this information a little bit later, but these are areas that we'll be learning throughout these sessions of how we people and the peopling area. So one other quick area is where we look at soul span. It's the emotional bandwidth. You see the word that's in there, it has to do with energy. It's our relational signature. Grace flow has to do with this restoration rhythm that we have. Vox load has to do with our emotional tone. Lumavox has to do with our area where we want clarity. And then this versatile area is where we look at having adaptive communication. The book is outlined in my book on peopling, just to let you know. I've color coded it where each chapter and the sections have to do with emotional intensity, vulnerability, and truth. The yellow area has to do with offering ways of curiosity and awareness and growth. The blue area is where we get our clarity and structure and where we draw wisdom from. The green area is the innovative part. Just another quick look at this digital area that goes back to the stats that Forbes did share so brilliantly with us. This gives us just a little bit of area of where these areas fall in this issues in the workplace, just like on-site, the remote area versus on or off-site, face-to-face stressors, poor communication, lack of trust, remote that is problematic with lag time, voice, off-site is burnout, job satisfaction. So this gives us just a little bit of area of clarification. Then this is just another area of the breakdown of digital communication as having to do with those graphs that I showed you a little earlier. Digital communication, team connectivity in the workplace, the burnout, team connection in the workplace, and this effect of trust in the workplace is another area that we look at. And then, of course, different communication methods. We've gone over the terms, so I won't go over those quite again, but you can always take a snapshot or a screenshot of those if you'd like to look at those a little bit more in depth. Also researching, this is some of the areas, some of the giants that academic research and on emotional labor and social exhaustion. So this is where I've gained some of the other information that I've gone through. So in finalizing, I just want to go through, so why these skills and why do we need to get these skills back? Basically, because social exhaustion is real and it's rising. We want to learn to be emotionally fluent And we also want to build legacy in peopling legacy in how we communicate. And these skills help us to show up with clarity, with care, and with courage. So these are why they're important. Also, these areas, again, of just the stats of communication breakdown at a glance. And if you'd like to take a screenshot again of that, then you'll kind of have that information. And closing reflection and some information. I just want to finalize this portion in providing you. It's just like, so why? So why is this even important? Because social exhaustion, we need to have some new tools and a recovery map. So this is what I've pretty much developed on how we can navigate through this. So peopling and the framework of emotional bandwidth is needed for renewal. So I identify these zones that empathy, clarity, courage, lightness, boundaries, and structure. If you look at that, they do then align with my peopling terms here, soul span, that, you see those here. And so when these are out of whack here, we can look at the peopling terms of when we are depleted in our soul span or in empathy. This is where we draw from. We draw from this particular area. Now, when our clarity is out of alignment, we can use this Coravox for misalignment. And as you can see, when we're overthinking certain things. So this is how it's going to bring us back into alignment. Courage, avoiding people pleasing, resentment. We have to be in an area where we're versatile. So when we're overloaded, this is where we need to come back and revisit this. And we'll talk more about this later. This area, when you just kind of need some revamping and you need some light and some encouragement, we look at this area. So this is if you're having an area where your kind of mood is dimming, it's this light. As you can see, it's Lumavox. And then grace flow is when you kind of feel that you are these boundaries are affected, you're overexposed, guilt-ridden, drained. This is where the grace flow is needed and some leakage is taking place. So you might need to come back and revisit that. Then finally, the structure and your attitude area. You feel a little disorientated, overbooked. You need to set a new margin, some new guideposts. This is where this energy has collapsed. And so this is that vital area. So I also have a checklist that we'll go through. Time will not permit us to go through each one of these. But again, if you'd like to take a screenshot of that, this is what I call the part of the toolkit. And then finally, just resetting, learning to reset. What is it? It's noticing. Why is it? It honors our emotional limits and how we practice it. We check in. We have to have some check-ins, self-check-ins, schedule with some grace flow moments and learn to really communicate our boundaries. And these are just our takeaways that we've had today. Again, if you'd like, take a screenshot on that and you have that information. Some final thoughts. Peopling is not just a skill, it's a legacy. So which of these are you already practicing? Some of you are already there. Some of us need some tweaking. Which one is calling you to grow? So here are some references that I have, of course, of all of the research that I've used. And I'd like to thank you so much. And if there's a time of question and answering, this is it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eagles. This was truly wonderful and an exciting start to your series. We did have a request to go back to some of the slides so people could take screenshots. It was a little bit quick for some screenshot snappers.
Sure.
So that would be great.
Let me just get back there. Very nice. Thank God for technology and screenshots, right? So I'll just quickly move through there. These are just, you don't really need those. These were just the overview. Don't need that. Social exhaustion, you might need that. These are important areas. Why these communication issues? And here are the breakdowns.
Yeah, you probably need to move a little bit slower because it takes a little time for the screenshots from computers.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. I'm based on time. I don't want to stress anyone out.
Yeah, and this recording will go up hopefully pretty soon. We try to attach the recordings in the RSC. There is a past presentation area, and we try to attach the recordings there. This is a process for us because we move the recordings to our YouTube channel, which we also have, and then we also attach it inside the RSC. So again, you can find all the information there. And if you are interested in presenting your research area and your interests, please email the RSC. We would love to hear from you and set something up.
Any other questions?
You're getting a lot of compliments and thank you in the chat.
Oh, thank you all so much. The thing is, once someone told me, just show up. That's all I was doing, just showing up and sharing my life experiences. Thank you all for joining. I really appreciate it. I'll just continue going through.
We appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's a very interesting topic. Yep.
I'm going to put in a shameless plug. The book is entitled Peopling. How are you communicating your peopling skills?
And we hope you all join for the next session.
I know, don't miss it.
In a month from now.
In the meantime, keep peopling, people well.
If you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourselves. You can still keep taking screenshots. Otherwise, I am going to stop the recording now. And we appreciate everyone, and we appreciate you, Dr. Eagles.
Thank you.
Are looking forward to the next presentation.
I really appreciate it. Take care.